Right now, somewhere in your life, there's a message you haven't sent, a decision you haven't made, a conversation you keep avoiding. You tell yourself you're being careful. You're not. Your brain is punishing you for something that hasn't even happened yet. There are 5 reasons your mind treats doing nothing as worse than doing something wrong. And the first one will change how you see every decision you've been avoiding. In 1994, researchers Jonathan Barron and Ilana Ritov ran a study that should have made headlines. They asked people to imagine a vaccine that could save children's lives but carried a small risk of causing harm. Most people refused to recommend it. Not because the math was bad, the vaccine saved far more lives than it risked, sometimes by a factor of 10. People refused anyway. Why? Because if they acted and something went wrong, they would feel responsible. If they did nothing and children died from the disease instead, they felt less guilty, even though more children died in that scenario. Same outcome, measured in lives. Completely different guilt, measured in feeling. This is called omission bias, and it's rewiring your decisions right now without you noticing it happen. Here's the first mechanism behind it. Your brain treats harm you caused through action as a violation you personally committed. Harm that happens because you did nothing feels like it belongs to the world, not to you. Researchers tested this directly with doctors. A physician who doesn't treat a patient and the patient worsens feels less guilty than a physician who treats the patient, and the treatment fails, even when the statistics clearly show that not treating was the far riskier choice. Doctors know the numbers. They still feel the asymmetry. You do the exact same thing every day, in smaller ways. You don't apply for the job, so you never technically failed. You didn't ask the question, so you never technically embarrassed yourself. But the job stayed unfilled by you either way. The silence doesn't erase the outcome. It just erases your fingerprints on it. Second, there's the status quo trap, and this one runs even deeper than guilt. Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky, the 2 researchers who essentially built modern behavioral economics from scratch, found that people value what they already have far more than equivalent things they don't have, a pattern they called loss aversion. This isn't just about possessions or money, it applies directly to your current situation, your current job, your current relationship, your current routine. Staying where you are feels safe because your brain hasn't calculated a loss. Nothing shows up on the internal ledger, but standing still is not neutral. It's an active choice with its own cost. Your brain simply refuses to log it as one. The same way a hole in a boat doesn't announce itself until the water's already at your ankles. Third, inaction gives you something your brain values more than good outcomes: plausible deniability. If you try something and fail, there's a clear, traceable cause. You, your effort, your choice, your name attached to the result. If you never try at all, the cause becomes murky and diffuse. Maybe it wouldn't have worked anyway. Maybe the timing was wrong. Maybe the market, the person, the moment just wasn't right. Your brain manufactures these stories on demand, and it does this because an unclear failure hurts less in the moment than a clear one. Even when, mathematically, the unclear failure costs you far more over the years that follow. You're not protecting your future. You're protecting your narrative. Fourth, there's an asymmetry in how regret gets processed over time, and this is the mechanism that flips the entire story on its head. Thomas Gilovich and Victoria Medvec, psychologists at Cornell University, spent years tracking exactly what people regret across different stages of their lives, and they found something almost nobody expects. In the short term, right after a decision, people regret their actions more intensely than their inactions. A bad choice you made yesterday stings sharply. It's specific, it's recent, it has edges. But zoom out to years and decades, and that pattern reverses completely. What people regret most by the end of their life isn't what they did. It's what they didn't do, the job they didn't take, the person they didn't call before it was too late, the trip, the apology, the risk. Actions fade from memory because they resolve. You know how the story ended, so your brain files it and moves on. Inactions haunt because they never close. There's no ending to file, just an open door your mind keeps walking past. Fifth, and this might be the strangest one, your brain confuses stillness with control. When you don't act, you feel like you're keeping your options open, like nothing has actually been decided yet, like the future is still fully available to you. But every single day you don't act is a day that has already passed, a decision already made by default, whether you meant to make it or not. The option wasn't kept open. It expired quietly while you were busy feeling like you were still holding on to it. Time doesn't pause for your indecision. It just stops asking you, so why does any of this matter for you today, in whatever specific thing you're avoiding right now. Because your brain isn't actually measuring outcomes at all, it's measuring blame, and it built this measurement system a very long time ago. Anthropologists studying small scale societies point out that your ancestors lived in tight groups where a visible mistake, a botched hunt, a bad call in front of everyone could get you shamed or even exiled. But a quiet failure to act, staying back, not volunteering, not speaking up, could pass unnoticed by the group entirely, and sometimes unnoticed by the person themselves. Back then, hiding your failures inside inaction was a genuinely useful survival strategy. It kept you safe from social punishment. Today, in a world where survival rarely depends on tribal approval, that same strategy has become something else entirely. It's not protecting you anymore. It's just a slow leak you've learned to ignore. Think about the last time you didn't do something you knew, somewhere underneath, that you should have done. Did you feel calm afterward? Genuinely calm? Or did you feel a quiet static underneath the calm? A low hum of unfinished business sitting just below the surface? The kind of feeling you get very good at not naming? That hum is the cost. It's real. You just weren't built for it in a currency you were trained to recognize, so it never registered as a loss, even though it was one. This shows up in places far more mundane than doctors and vaccines. It shows up when you don't send the text that could repair a friendship, because at least this way, nothing was technically ruined by you. It shows up when you stay in a job that's slowly hollowing you out, because leaving feels like an action with your name on it, while staying feels like something that's simply happening to you. It shows up when you watch an opportunity close in front of you and tell yourself it wasn't the right moment anyway, when the truth is you never tested whether it was. Here's the part that should unsettle you a little. None of this is about laziness. People caught in omission bias aren't lazy. Many of them are working incredibly hard, just in directions that carefully avoid the one decision that actually matters. The busyness itself can become another form of inaction, a way of staying in motion without ever risking the one move that could be judged, praised, or blamed. Motion isn't the same as a decision. You can run in place for years and still be standing exactly where you started, just more tired. There's a version of this that plays out specifically online, and it's worth naming because you'll recognize it instantly. You scroll past a comment section full of people who said the wrong thing publicly, who posted the take that aged badly, who sent the message that got screenshotted. You watch them get judged in real time. Meanwhile, nobody builds a highlight reel of the people who stayed quiet, who never posted the idea, who never pitched the project, who never asked the question in the meeting. Silence doesn't trend. It doesn't get quoted and shared. It doesn't generate a single ounce of visible consequence. So your brain quietly concludes that silence must be the safer bet. It isn't safer. It's just invisible, which is a different thing entirely, and invisibility is precisely what makes it so easy to keep choosing. Consider how differently we talk about the two categories in hindsight. When someone takes a bold swing and it doesn't work out, we call it a mistake, sometimes even an embarrassment, and we remember the specific detail for years. When someone quietly lets 10 years pass without ever taking that same swing, we don't even have a word for what they lost, because nothing observable happened. There's no event to point to, no headline, no story with a beginning and an end. Just a long, flat stretch of time where a different life was technically still possible and slowly became less so. One ordinary day at a time, without a single dramatic moment marking the loss. This is also why advice like just don't take unnecessary risks quietly fails so many people. It sounds wise. It sounds like restraint, but it smuggles in a hidden assumption that not acting carries no risk of its own. Every year you don't ask for the raise is a year of compounding lost income. Every year you don't leave the relationship that isn't working is a year you don't get back, spent instead of saved. Every year you don't start the thing you keep saying you'll start when the timing is better is a year the timing was, in fact, exactly as good as it will ever be, because timing was never really the obstacle. Restraint isn't automatically wise. Sometimes it's just fear wearing a more respectable outfit, one that lets it walk around unquestioned. So here's the actual mirror this points back at you. Right now, today, somewhere in your life, there's a version of the vaccine study playing out on a personal scale. A decision where you've convinced yourself that doing nothing is the neutral, careful, responsible choice, when really it's just the option that keeps the blame furthest from your name. Your brain didn't design this system to make you happy. It designed it a long time ago to make you look blameless in front of a small group of people who could exile you for a visible mistake. That group isn't watching anymore. The mechanism is still running anyway, quietly billing you for a safety that was never actually free. The message you haven't sent isn't neutral. The decision you haven't made isn't safe. Your brain built an elaborate, ancient system to convince you that stillness has no price, that waiting is free, that not choosing is somehow different from choosing not to. But somewhere down the line, years from now, you'll be the one tallying the bill, not for the mistake you made, for the one you were too careful to try.